Hi everyone, you're watching Tamit Saleh's Tennis Forum, and I am so excited to do this video. I have a very special guest with us on the channel. I'm so excited for him to be able to share his thoughts on yesterday's match and beyond as well. We are going to be having a three-part special with the one and only Gill Gross. I know many of you have already heard of him and he does some wonderful stuff. I'll put his channel link in the description below. One other exciting news I have for you guys is I have made up a Patreon account where you can support the channel. If this channel you feel has helped you, or you find it informative or enjoyable and you want to show some support, then I'll be putting my Patreon link in the description below as well. I'd just like to remind everyone that I will still be keeping my content all on YouTube, all for free, because I don't want anyone to miss out. But if you do have the means to support the channel for the price of a coffee a month, then that would be much appreciated, and it will all go back into the channel to make the content better. Hopefully the visuals will be better as well, just to enhance the whole dynamic. And I really hope that you enjoy this whole independent tennis journalism objective style that I'm trying to portray for you guys. But yeah, enough about that. We have a very special guest. Let's leave a target for this video at, let's say, 150 thumbs up. The response you guys have been giving me on my previous videos has been outstanding. We did a live watch along for the entire final, which you can see on YouTube. Amazing performance from Rafa, and yeah, I did not think I'd be doing the whole match, but it turned out that I did the entire match watch along. If you enjoyed it or think we should do more of that, then please do let me know. I think we had roughly 6,000 to 7,000 people across the live stream joining us, so it went really well and I thoroughly enjoyed doing a live stream and sharing it with you guys. But yeah, without further ado, I'm going to bring on our very special guest, and I hope you enjoy all three parts of this very special episode, let's say. Hi Gil, welcome to the channel. It's an absolute honor for me to have you on the channel. So, you know, amazing YouTuber, and I have a lot of respect for yourself. When I actually started doing my YouTube channel, my YouTube thing, I hadn't come across your channel. However, since then, I've seen a lot of your videos. You know, some of the content you make is brilliant. The Monday match analysis, I always look forward to watching that. And I've always said that if you're looking for the true physics behind the game, how the match played out, you know, what may have swung it, then by far you are way more knowledgeable than I'll ever be. And I do learn a lot of stuff from watching your content. So for me, honestly, it's a really great privilege and an honor to have you on the channel and share your knowledge with the subscribers that I have as well.
Really appreciate you saying that to me. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you for inviting me on, and you're doing great work yourself.
Thank you very much. It's I'm sure everyone will agree as well that Gill is a very respected tennis YouTuber and a fan as well. And I think you're almost at 7,000 subscribers now. So I'm sure a lot of my subscribers are already subscribed to yourself. But if you haven't, then I'll be putting Gill's channel on the description. Go check it out. It will be one of the best things you do, and you will learn a lot from him, like I do myself. So yeah, I'm buzzing to have Gill on my channel, and it's, yeah, once again a great honor for myself. So what we'll talk about today, Gill, is of course no other place to begin other than yesterday's Roland Garros final between Rafa and Novak. Not the match we were expecting, not the greatest of tennis matches ever after all the hype, but for sure probably one of the best ever performances in a Grand Slam final ever, or at least from what I know, from Rafa Nadal beating Novak Djokovic in straight sets. So I just wanted to sort of pick your brains a little bit and have you share your knowledge with all of us. And just, yeah, a quick question. We'll begin with your thoughts of the match itself, quite briefly, and I'll ask a few more questions. So yeah, over to you.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I think it was one of the great performances we've seen in a major final. Nadal has done this before. I mean, 2008 comes to mind when he beat Federer very handedly in the Roland Garros final. And Novak did a similar thing to Nadal in 2019 in the Australian Open final. So this was very much, I don't think either of the competitors see it this way, but it was kind of payback if you want to put it, if you want to frame it that way, right? But for Nadal, it is true that he hadn't dropped a set coming into the final, but he played at a much higher level in this final than he did in the lead up to it. Despite the fact that he hadn't dropped a set, this was levels above what we saw from Rafa throughout the tournament. And Novak actually said he was surprised by Rafa's level. So I think everyone was to a certain extent, but at the same time, how could you be surprised from a man who's won this tournament 12 times?
I think it's a shame on us, really, for ever doubting Rafa on clay, or for thinking that someone had a chance to beat him in the final, because Rafa really shut that door very quickly, you know, starting with the bagel, 6-love, 6-2, 7-5, a very, very convincing scoreline. So I've watched your Monday match analysis on the final itself, and I just like you to share with us a few points. So one of the points was we all, or a lot of us, consider Novak to be the greatest ever returner. His returns are just fantastic. He manages to get them very deep, and is, you know, I've seen him hit countless winners of great first serves. So one point that you mentioned was that it's quite conceivable that Rafa may be a better returner than Novak on clay. So would you like to elaborate that on us, why you may think that?
Well, the unique thing about the return as a shot is the ball comes so fast, so hard, you have so little time, that it's all about shortening up your stroke to the most compact version of it possible. But when the ball loses as much speed as the ball does on a clay court, suddenly the return can start to resemble a regular ground stroke a little bit more closely. And I think that we've seen over the years that when Nadal has time to take a fuller swing, and this is part of the reason he stands so far back on return, it's a really...
Sorry guys, we seem to have lost connection, but we do have Gill back. So yeah, I'll let you carry on.
So I guess I was saying that the return of serve begins to resemble a ground stroke the slower the court gets. And we have seen that benefit Rafa Nadal's return of serve repeatedly. And after the performance that he put, you know, forth against Djokovic in this match, making 95% of his returns in play, I just think it's kind of a reminder that on this surface, Nadal's return is as good as anyone's, if not better.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the stat. Yeah, like you said, 95%. You had the exact numbers. I can't remember them off the top of my head right now, but it was it like 50 out of 55 or something like that? I can't remember, but
I have it. 61 out of 65 first serve returns in play.
Yeah, that's just incredible, and I think that helped Rafa with really putting pressure on Novak, because, you know, getting that many first serves back. The total match, the stat was Novak only won 50% of his first serves. So normally you're seeing that figure at around 70-75%. Seeing at 50, you know, losing half the points that you're getting your first serve in, that just showed us the way the match went. And another point that I think was quite interesting that you made in your last video was that Novak, so we know Novak Djokovic loves his drop shot. He's been playing them very often, and I felt like that throughout the tournament he was preparing himself for the final against Rafa. So he really wanted to tune in that drop shot, because it's such a valuable tool, especially in the clay court, and in this year's clay court, especially the way the Wilson ball was behaving, the heavier conditions, the slower condition where the ball was just, you know, it loses everything once it was touching the ground. So one point you made was Novak's last drop shot. It was at the 4-all in the third set at 15-love. So bearing in mind we had about five games after that. The fact that he didn't play a single drop shot was quite a stunning fact. So why do you think that was the case? Why did Novak abandon a big tactic or tool that he used the whole tournament?
I think he decided it wasn't working enough, and I think at that point in the match, Novak started hitting the ball as flat and as big as he possibly could. So I think it was just a decision. Look, I am going to go for broke. I'm going to stay aggressive at all costs. I'm not going to allow Nadal to dictate. And if I make the ball on the court, I'm going to have some success. And Novak started to serve the best he had all match in the third set, and he was finding the court enough. You could see that because he was holding serve, and that's how we got to 5-all. The concern there with his game plan was it was high risk. So you saw a cluster of errors at 5-all, and then in the return game trying to stay alive at 6-5.
Yeah, well said. And a couple of other things. I think you touched on it on the point you just mentioned. It's that we saw Novak make 50 unforced errors. Now, I can't remember very often, at least, when Novak makes that many unforced errors. And a lot of people will take that as Novak Djokovic really playing poorly. But for me, the way I saw it was Rafa was forcing him to go for the lines, because if he wasn't, then Rafa was just getting everything back, and not just getting everything back, but he was getting it back with, power and aggression himself. So, Novak, or the way you were phrasing it was he wasn't playing within himself, and that could have been that basically forced the whole unforced error stat to go higher. So just some thoughts on that to clarify to everyone that it wasn't simply Novak playing poorly, but it was the way Rafa was making him play. If you'd like to touch on that.
Yeah, 100%. It was Rafa's movement and his defense and his consistency. Novak knew that he wasn't going to get any gifts from Nadal because he hadn't gotten any gifts all match, with the exception of a few games in the third set where Nadal made multiple errors in a single game. Other than that, you got maybe one error per game, if that, usually less through 2 sets, a lot less than that. So there was tons of pressure on Novak. I do think that if he were younger, if he were in his prime, if he were in his mid-20s, he might have had a different game plan to try to deal with that pressure. He might have tried to just try to stay in the points, use his legs, and feel like as if he could try to make the match more physical. But in the current state of Novak, in his mid-30s, he felt that he needed to be as aggressive as possible because Nadal was playing so well that he just had to try to make something happen. It was also the fact that Nadal can play within himself with more power than Djokovic. So that's an important distinction. How come Nadal can hit through the court without making errors, but when Djokovic tries to hit through an extremely slow court, he makes more errors because Nadal has more natural power. He's naturally a bigger hitter than Djokovic. So that's important to note.
I think, that's perfectly said. The way that forehand power that Rafa generates is just incredible. He doesn't even need to paint the lines. It's just relentless. He can do it time and time and time again. And with the conditions as well. So a lot of us, we expected the conditions to really favor Novak. I believe Goran came out and said a few confident things before the match. But I mean, we all thought that the cooler conditions, the match being played indoors, especially when I heard it was indoors, I was like, wow, the stars are really aligning for Novak here. But for me personally, the roof perhaps helped Rafa. Well, clearly didn't help Novak in this final, but his backhand maybe was more flat, more powerful because of the indoor conditions. Do you think the conditions, did we overhype the conditions, or how did you see it play out?
I wouldn't say overhype. I'd say misread.
Yeah.
And because everyone wanted to talk about height of bounce, and that's a big part of conditions. Don't get me wrong. And you can track a player like Roberto Bautista Agut, and you can pretty much figure out how well he's going to do at a tournament based on how high the ball is bouncing. So height of bounce is important. Don't get me wrong. What about court speed? And that's something that everyone was ignoring. And I think the slower the court in this matchup, the more it favors Nadal and the things that he can do. In terms of the roof, you bring up an interesting point about Rafa's backhand. I just wonder if Rafa looked up, and this is purely conjecture, but I wonder if Rafa looked up at the roof and it fueled him mentally a little bit, because he knows that that's going to, I'd say, bring on the doubts from the outside. So I
Yeah.
do wonder if Nadal saw the roof and was like, huh, everyone thinks I'm going to lose, don't they, because of the roof? Well, I'll show them. And, maybe that was part of why he came out so exceptionally, but it's impossible to say.
Now, thank you very much, Jill, for just answering some of those quite interesting and important questions. The way the match turned out, I think it was clear from all of us, and I did a full match live stream that wasn't meant to be full match, but it turned out to be, because the match didn't go as long as a lot of us expected. But I think it's safe to say that Rafa was just playing, sublime stuff. I felt like there was a lot of games where it was close. So in my opinion, even though it was 6-love, 6-2, the games themselves were pretty close. A lot of them went to juice. Novak had a couple of break points on a lot of his own service games. He did have game points. So I remember in the first set, in the first game, he had a game point. I believe the second game he served, he had a game point. At 4-love in the first set, he was 40-love up. And at that point, I was thinking, surely he's going to get something on the scoreboard here. And what was quite interesting for me was seeing how the first set, even though it was a 6-love set, it still lasted 42 or 43 minutes. And normally, I don't associate a 6-love bagel set with a 43-minute length. It's like, imagine had that gone to a tiebreak, how long that set would have been. You're looking at an hour and a half to perhaps close to 2 hours for that first set. So, just like the games themselves were quite close, but I did not feel Rafa at any point of the match lost control. I mean, the first two, obviously, there's no doubt he was in total control. In the third set, when Novak broke back to make it 3-all, having just been broken, he let out that roar, and he was, trying to really rally up the crowd. And what was quite shocking for me is, so Novak is quite an emotional character, and for me that's not a problem at all. But a lot of people don't like it. They might say it's not the way a champion should behave and things like that. But I see no issue, and I actually quite like it. But when he was starting to rally up the crowd, and the crowd were actually getting behind him, because the French crowd, notoriously they always go for the underdog. So Novak at that point was, massive underdog. They wanted to see a longer final, and the crowd, I'd say at that point, became like turned to Novak's side. I thought once he got that break, once he then consolidated it by winning his service game to make it 4-3, I thought he could make a movement somewhat similar to what Tsitsipas did against him, where he won the third set out of nowhere, really, and then won the fourth as well. So perhaps we could have had that final. Were you personally in any sort of doubt or had feeling that Novak at 4-3 in the third set could turn things around, or was it too little too late at that point?
Well, I'll tell you what, I didn't have a lot of doubt, but I knew not to pretend the match was over, just because I know how tennis's scoring system works. It is a crazy, crazy scoring system, and crazy stuff happens. But I'll say this about, even when Djokovic was having success and winning points in this match, he required magic. I felt like he needed to paint lines and hit forehands that are bigger than he normally hits, and he basically needed spectacular shot making in order to get things going his way. I didn't feel that way for Nadal. I felt like he was winning in his comfort zone. So that was, I think, the main difference. Unless the complexion of the match changed, and unless Djokovic found a way to win points with less risk and higher margin, I had a feeling in that third set that at some point Novak was going to make a slew of errors at the wrong time, and it was going to put Nadal back ahead, and that's what ended up happening.
Yeah, I think you've pretty much said that brilliantly. The way Novak was playing, it's too difficult, almost impossible to keep it up for a length of time to actually make it count. It's really hard to be consistent when you're going for broke every shot, and that's what he was having to do, as you very well said, to get any points off Rafa. And yeah, like you said, Rafa was always in control. So yeah, thank you. I think we'll probably end part one here, guys. Fantastic to hear Gil's opinion on the match itself, some fantastic analysis. And in the second part, we're going to be discussing a bit more about Rafa, and if this performance from Rafa and this, this entire French Open really, was this really the final? Was this the best ever tennis Rafa Nadal has played on clay? So do stay tuned in for part two.